There is no requirement in this bill that the General Assembly appropriate any money. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to explain those. The committee amendment does a few things. It excludes violent offenders from entering the program. It makes sure that we give notice to victims. And it actually gives a little bit more flexibility to the solicitors about the type of program if they want to offer one.
Question is adoption of the committee amendment. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Committee amendment is adopted. Second reading of the bill, Senate Bill 426. That's a roll call vote. Clerk will please ring the bell. Clerk will please call the roll.
Mr. Alexander. Aye. Mr. Allen. Not voting Mr. Bennett. Aye. Mr. Bright. Not voting Mr. Bryant. Mr. Bryant votes aye. Mr. Campbell. Aye. Mr. Campson. Aye. Mr. Cleary. Aye. Mr. Coleman. Not voting Mr. Corbin. Aye. Mr. Corson. Aye. Mr. Cromer. Aye. Mr. Davis. Aye. Mr. Fair. Not voting Mr. Gregory. Aye. Mr. Grooms. Aye. Mr. Hayes. Aye. Mr. Hembry. Aye. Mr. Hutto. Not voting Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson not voting Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Kempson. Aye. Mr. Leatherman. Aye. Mr. Lurie. Aye. Mr. Malloy. Aye. Mr. Larry Martin. Aye. Mr. Shane Martin. Aye. Mr. Massey. Aye. Mr. Matthews. Not voting Mr. McElveen. Aye. Mr. Nicholson. Aye. Mr. Odell. Aye. Mr. Peeler. Aye. Mr. Pinckney. Not voting Mr. Rankin. Aye. Mr. Reese. Aye. Mr. Sabb. Aye. Mr. Scott. Not voting Mr. Setzler. Aye. Mrs. Shealy. Aye. Mr. Shaheen. Aye. Mr. Thurman. Aye. Mr. Turner. Aye. Mr. Verdon. Aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams not voting Mr. Young. Mr. Young votes aye.
Have all senators voted? Senator from Spartanburg, Mr. Bright, votes aye. Have all senators voted? Senator from Greenville, Mr. Fair, votes aye. The senator from Richland, Mr. Jackson, votes aye. Senator from Marion, Mr. Williams, votes aye. Have all the senators voted? Have all the senators voted? Then the polls are closed. The clerk will please tabulate. Okay, give just a second. By a vote of 40-0, Senate Bill 426 receives second reading. Senator from Kershaw.
Thank you. Briefly, I just want to recognize Peyton Blau, who has been a tireless advocate on behalf of the mentally ill and worked incredibly hard on this bill. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for giving second reading to the Mental Health Court initiative. And Peyton, just want to say thank you for all your work to make this happen.
Thank you.